Hello, I'm the Lobster Gamer. I lobster it so you don't have to.
Hello there, it's the Lobster Gamer, and welcome to Lobsterpiece Theater in 2018. It's a brand new year, a brand new me, and a brand new season, if you consider these things to be a season. I want to start off the year by talking about something fairly important to me, and not necessarily just looking at a terrible movie or even one that's based on something. I want to talk about my inspiration. You see, it was over 5 years ago now that I started doing this channel as a Let's Play channel, because I didn't have to show my face and I could just do commentary casually as I play video games and talk. And then one day I was just randomly inspired to start doing this web review show, and while I'm not that good at it yet, I have come a long way over the time I've been doing it. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the people who inspired me. Because once upon a time, these types of things didn't exist on the internet until a small group of talented men and women decided that they were going to start doing web review shows to talk about terrible movies or video games or music or even comic books that just made them so mad they wanted to scream and shout and swear at the camera. I'm talking, of course, about the talented people from thatguywiththeglasses.com and their leader, the indomitable nostalgia critic. These people come from a wide variety of backgrounds and interests, and I've only ever watched maybe a handful of their shows, but I have my favorites, and I do intend to continue to watch down the line, get to know more of the different characters. But what we're here to talk about today is a movie. You see, the crew from thatguywiththeglasses.com and later Channel Awesome, which is what it is known as today, did these anniversary specials of the anniversary of their channel creation. The Nostalgia Critic would write these scripts and they would do these absurd movies that basically poked fun at a certain genre of film. The first one was called Kick-Assia, and it was more of like an action movie genre about a group of people taking over a small nation, one-man nation. The second one was called Suburban Nights, and it was like the fantasy action genre, and they go on a great quest to find a magical artifact and save the world. What I'm here to talk about today is the 4-year anniversary special of thatguywiththeglasses.com that takes a look at the sci-fi genre. And as we are still basking in the glow of Star Wars: The Last Jedi, I felt like this was appropriate because it heavily takes references from Star Wars. The movie is called To Boldly Flee, and it stars the entire cast of thatguywiththeglasses.com. Their assorted critics, friends, and many cameos from other internet reviewers. But most of all, it stars the one and only Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic. So let's sit back, get some popcorn, and enjoy as I take you through a 3.5-hour long journey of a movie that just is great. And it shows how you don't have to have a huge Hollywood budget to make a quality parody movie. Something that's probably better than all the X type of movie, out there. Horror movie, scary movie, disaster movie, teen movie, whatever they're called. It's basically that, but better. So let's take a look at To Boldly Flee.
The movie opens on some backstory from the previous movie, Suburban Nights, in which the character of Matee from Captain Planet, who was a reoccurring character on the Critics Review show for a while, is killed, saving the entire group from an evil wizard. They place his ashes in a Quaker oatmeal can, and that person throws it into space, as the nostalgia critic and his friends look on. This is important because, well, Quaker oatmeal in space is awesome. I mean, look at that. But you know what happens when Quaker oatmeal goes into space, don't you? you see, you get explosions. That's what you get. The first actual scene we see in the movie is this guy hanging out on the hood of his car in a parking lot. No idea why. I have to ask if this is his daily activity. Anyway, this is Pa, played by Paul Schuler, one of the people whose review shows I've never watched, and I couldn't even tell you what he actually reviews, even though I assume it's sci-fi related. He hears this weird heartbeat thing coming through this satellite dish as he's just, chilling on the hood of his car. And he immediately leaps into action to go and tell people about it. Enough about him, it's time to see the true hero of our movie. The nostalgia critic, who wakes up in bed just like the people from the secret village, and eats a balanced breakfast of Cheerios 2 to start his day. After having a somewhat depressing phone call with one of his film reviewer colleagues, the nostalgia critic gets a doorbell ring and finds some unsettling news.
Nostalgia critic?
Yeah?
You're under house arrest.
What? Under what charges?
Terrorism!
And this is how we're introduced to the main antagonist of our movie, Warlord Ferdinand von Turl, played by Noah Antweiler, and the main character villain from the movie Battlefield Earth and one of the Nostalgia Critics reviews. And he's in front of a terrible green screen effect.
After Turl gives us some backstory about that guy with the glasses.com anniversary specials, we learn that the main plot of this movie is about how the film industry is cracking down on internet critics and blocking their videos online through the use of nasty tools like the Stop the Unstoppable Copyright Killers Act, also known as SUCCA, which has been enacted by villainous people in Hollywood to stop people like the nostalgia critic from making any money off their reviews. How will this affect the plot of our movie?
After having another phone call, this time with Turl, the nostalgia critic goes down into his basement to find that he's got another unwanted guest living there. He first thinks it's Matee when he hears a voice whispering his name, but then discovers that it's actually Spoonie, the real Noah Antweiler, who was playing Fallout 3 on the computer, if that loading screen is any indication.
Take me home.
Spoonie seems to be possessed by
Spoonie, we are
Matee.
home. My home. Get out. And there's still time. Search for my body. Find the hole.
Okay, there is no way I am reaching for your hole.
Then tell me.
Cut back
what's
over to
Mecha
Pa,
Carl?
who's trying to contact Linkara, another
It's my
reviewer
psychotic
who
robot
owns a
double.
spaceship.
How does my theme song go?
I met you on a Thursday.
What do I review, Paw?
Lamps?
Goodbye, Paw.
He really reviews comic books, and that's the ongoing joke throughout this movie and a lot of his videos, that people think he reviews lamps. He's played by Louis Lovehog, and is probably one of my favorite reviewers of this entire group, if a little egotistical. Linkara also gets a surprise visitor at his door.
Lamps. Who is it? Special delivery. I didn't order anything. Candygram. Huh, must be from another admiring fan. Well, buck up. Linkara. Yes, I'm gonna go get him.
Back up in space, we're introduced to the main antagonist of this movie as Turl gets an unexpected phone call and we realize just how much this movie loves Star Wars.
What is thy bidding, Executor?
There is a great disturbance in the hole.
This is the Executor, played by Rob Walker, the nostalgia critic's brother.
it.
He does a scarily good impersonation of the Emperor from Star Wars.
Spoony one. The hole's reach is strong in him.
And with our story not even a half an hour into this 3.5-hour monstrosity, I hope you're beginning to understand something. There's an absurd number of characters and an absurd number of side plots in this thing that just keep going on. I will do my best to explain who all these people are and what their various roles are, but if you get confused, don't blame me. Anyway, the Nostalgia Critic has Spoony looked at by a couple doctors who are obsessed with sex. Mecha-Kara gets his hands on the Power Glove after taking Linkara hostage, Mecha-Kara being Linkara's evil robot double and another one of the villains in this movie. And a guy called the Last Angry Geek visits the Nostalgia Critic to give him some plot exposition about how Mati's character is inside of Spoony, and that's why he's the one that keeps talking to the critic in that weird voice that is kind of offensive, honestly. And then just when you thought that there was already enough characters in this movie,
Whatever you think.
The doctors hook Spoony up to a machine to show his unconscious thoughts and invite a couple more of his friends in. The Cinema Snob, played by Brad Jones, Bennett the Sage, and Luke Mockery, son of famous Canadian improv comedian Colin Mockery, who, fun fact, I've actually seen live.
And you've chosen a very good teacher.
Brad Jones, the Snob, is one of my favorite people in this movie also. He's just so absolutely good at being cynical and slimy. This scene is hilarious because they do a really kind of fun back and forth little skit here.
Okay. Spoony, what are you thinking right now?
Wait a minute, I never said that.
But your mind did. Isn't science embarrassing?
My mind did not say that. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Well, now I am because the damn machine put the song in my head.
All right. Now let's get real. Spoony, how often do you listen to Rebecca Black?
Never.
Why do you like her so much?
I don't.
And this just goes on and on.
Wait a minute, you had a
The parade of characters keeps coming and coming as the nostalgia chick, Lindsay Ellis, visits the critic's house, and
Who are you talking to?
we learn a little bit about her romance subplot in this movie with this guy, Todd Nathanson, Todd in the Shadows.
Really? You still have that Todd in the Shadows guy?
I don't know, there's just something about a guy in a mask who's clearly hiding some deep emotional damage. Sexy, you know?
Oh, you mean like the mystery about why he has the hots for Obscurus Lupa?
That bozo the cow.
And Obscurus Lupa is another person in this movie, played by Alison Priegler, and she's funny too. Notice how I haven't said anything nice about Lindsay here. Maybe I don't like her very much. Nostalgia Critic gets a message from Spoony's subconscious while he's hooked up to a machine, and they start seeing all sorts of crazy images, leading them to a mysterious hole in space. This is the plot of this movie.
Spoony, is this the hole?
And I'm thoroughly impressed that they decided to destroy some computer monitors to commit to this movie. Good work, guys. As the doctors and others are making some breakthroughs, another one of the villains of this movie, a man who writes internet policy named Prick, shows up to confiscate Spoony and take him into federal custody.
Shutting this off would have extremely dangerous consequences.
I'm not interested in your opinion, you gaggle of quacks. Just shut it off.
Something out there is talking to Spoony and we don't know what. Pulling him out of this coma can have dire consequences.
Yeah, tell him about Sage's wiener.
That might sound weird out of context.
Yes, it might.
My friend, don't be a douchebag.
after unplugging Spoony from the machine does have dire consequences and leads to a bunch of random cameos. Get used to those in this movie. The nostalgia critic decides he's had enough and is actually going to initiate the plot of this movie almost an hour in. He uses magical Star Trek teleportation technology to teleport all of his employees to his house. And now, introducing the full ThatGuyWithTheGlasses.com spring lineup.
And here they are. And Juwario, Angry Joe and Mars Girl, Caught in the Shadows, Obscurus Lupa. All of these people, who I will probably tell you about later. And they're all here to see what the Nostalgia Critic has to say.
When the group realizes they need some scientific expertise and Spoonie to complete their mission, Brad Jones and the Fun Bunch show up to tell them that Spoonie's been kidnapped by the bad guys, and the two scientists did some ridiculous stunts and got themselves arrested.
Boy, that's quite a routine you worked out.
Some of the other supporting cast have my exact thoughts in mind.
You did awesome. Well, that's just great. Anyone else know a scientist batshit crazy enough to know what's going on?
Wait, Critic, where'd you get the beaming device? The one that brought us here?
I stole it.
And introducing another character in this movie, the fabulous supervillain mad scientist Dr. Insano, and a reoccurring character in many of these people's review shows. He's just a running gag and provides lots of plot exposition to this
The
show.
world's gonna be turned upside down.
Precisely! Which will make it all the more easy for me to take over.
Or it could turn you into a hippo's ball sack.
Good point. Very well. There's only one explanation for what's going on here, and I think I've figured it out.
Good. So what's with all these anomalies then?
The answer is quite clear. We're dealing with a plot hole.
Dun dun dun! Dr. Insano is also kind of a doofus, and they distract him long enough to rob him of his stuff.
That's why I need mad scientist insurance. Even took the novelty slot machine. Who does that?
And then through the use of amazing montages they install all the scientific gadgets they stole from Dr. Insano in the Nostalgia Critic's house so that they can turn it into the Starship Enterprise house. Or this. The spaceship Housterprise can take off. Rick and his two buddies show up to cause problems. Luckily, the Nostalgia Critic has 8-Bit Mickey right around to take care of business.
What did you just call me?
But don't call him short!
Hear me all the way down there, can you, little fella?
That's a height joke. I wouldn't go for the height jokes.
Oh, someone insecure about his height? Perhaps I should get you a booster seat and a Happy Meal.
I really wouldn't be saying such things.
And I was expecting to see the Incredible Hulk pop out of him here, but the result isn't as exciting.
Just maybe. You should talk to the hand, because the head all the way up here can't hear you. Surely.
And that's the last we see of Prick.
The hell is taking him so long? Okay, so apparently Spoonie's not on Earth. He's on
Earl allows the critic to escape Earth's atmosphere in his house spaceship, and the executor gets mad, so he sends a new villain to make sure Turl does his job. An even more terrifying villain. Somewhat, sort of, kind of. Behold, the malevolent and evil. Nostalgia Critic playing Zod from Superman 2.
He's foreign.
You both have the
Segment is just a little life aboard the spaceship recorded on a handheld camera as we start to see some of the characters turning into classic sci-fi stereotype characters from other media, which is another trend they did in a lot of these movies. like CR and Jesu Otaku here, who suddenly becomes...
But as you can see, we're still putting it together.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I'm not really good with any techniques.
J.O.
Radical Edward from Cowboy Bebop.
Edward is fine, thank you.
And she does this scarily well.
Why are we just focusing on one project when we could be working on several? I'm gonna make an engine that not only works on water, but also replicates it in 32 different flavors.
J.O., are you okay?
And the following joke makes me very happy.
Oh, smokes. I can see so much better with these. It's like I can see right through the wall that 8-Bit Mickey's watching My Little Pony.
Damn proud I am.
Back in Bad Guy Land, Zod has great plans to reorganize and get Turtle back on the right track.
What are your men to transform this vessel into a house?
What?
The next scene shows a lot of sexual tension as we see some scenes of the characters spending some time together in the spaceship after dark. The nostalgia chick, Todd in the Shadows, and Obscurus Lupa's love triangle gets taken to the next level. And we also see the cinema snob and Luke Mockery talking about their plans for the future. And anyway, excuse me. Anyway, the cinema snob begins to doubt the cinematic process and his own career as a critic and snuff film author. And we see a mysterious masked figure is following the critics into space. What will happen next? Ben, what's happening to me?
The nostalgia chick has decided to send a heartfelt email to Todd with her feelings. She finds out that Linkara is using all the bandwidth and goes to find out why. Turns out he's got a lot of extension cords and a dark secret.
Alright, I have it here. Now tell me the secret of his power.
Not yet. Lay low for now, and when the time is right, strike! And then the
She discovers the evil Mecha Kara is teamed up with Warlord Turl and wants to unlock the secret of the Power Glove. But is this the end for the nostalgia chick? Probably. Also, this happens.
Nostalgia chick, Linkara, you know, there's a meeting downstairs and... I'm gonna give you two a month.
Detonator!
Will builds a thermal detonator, and the nostalgia chick is no longer herself. She is now
The carbon unit known as Nostalgia Chick is now void. I am 7 of 11.
a terrible joke and a reference to the Borg from Star Trek.
Alright, the plan...
Don't doubt
The
my
nostalgia
powers.
critic and crew reach the moon of Europa and discover Spoonie's there. They also discover a bunch of life signs and decide to send an away team down to investigate. Bennett claims to have psychic powers, so the nostalgia critic sends him along. He also sends Sad Panda, a French man who reviews movies and watches Doctor Who.
It'll have to do. I, of course, will lead the away team with...
Oh, no, you don't, critic.
And
Not
this
time.
is Phelan Porteous, also known as Phalus, and another reviewer who I really enjoy watching the show of. He's tired of the critic always being in charge and wants to take command, and steps up.
Why not?
Look at what you're wearing.
Yeah, so?
Well, it's just... The guys in the red shirts, they tend...
To be captain, yeah.
Well, maybe in
He also
next
loves
gen,
wearing
they'll-
red shirts and has an ongoing gag in his
Now,
videos
as
that we'll
Lord
get to
Commander
later.
High Crown Captain, I'm demoting you all to petty officers. Any problems with that?
It's your funeral, Captain Canuck.
All right, now I'm
He's also
in charge.
Canadian.
Panda, Sage,
Very Canadian. Star Trek beaming technology, they go down to the planet and get ready to start their difficult mission.
I say we split up. Now, this may take a few hours.
Hey,
so...
Phalus?
That works.
Or not very at all difficult mission, and they immediately find Spoonie.
You give these critics too
The
much
enemy
credit.
house comes in range of the heroic house ship, and they fool them using incredibly clever tactics.
Fellow critics.
What? From where?
From Food Network?
What?
Hello, this is Rachel Ray.
His Rachel Ray impersonation is spot on here. 10 out of 10.
What are you doing in space?
It's a special crossover with Oprah.
I would pay good money to see that. Elder Critic and crew are fooled by this clever ruse, and all their weapon systems are deactivated by the evil robots. And if you ever wanted to see exciting graphics of houses firing lasers at houses, this movie is for you.
Well, you can't be serious.
Turtle demands a Nostalgia Critic's surrender, and when he doesn't believe him, he decides to kill one of the hostages.
Don't you want haggle?
And guess who they decide to kill?
Yeah, I feel the love in this room.
Sir Phalus is thankfully dead.
The Nostalgia Critic is devastated to learn that one of his friends and closest allies and employees is dead. But then we discover a gag that has relation to something that happens a lot in Phalus's review show.
Bastard, you killed my flunk!
You were saying?
The joke here being that in his original movie reviews, Phalus would die at the end of every episode and somehow come back perfectly fine in the next episode.
Some not so easy to resurrect.
Critics come up with a wonderful plan involving destroying the only guy on their ship that can fire the weapons.
Excuse me, which one of you is the tactical weapons officer?
And then the Nostalgia Critic dons one of his many hats in this movie and takes on a classic sci-fi character role of his own.
I am the law!
What follows is exactly what you expect as the Nostalgia Critic, now donning the Judge Dredd persona, embarks on a mission of mayhem and destruction for about a half hour of the movie, running around fighting these guards and trying to save his friends. There's a lot of hijinks involving the power-enhancing gloves that he's wearing and a BFG 9000. Not even kidding. But in the end, the Critic is victorious, and they get their weapons working just in time to defeat Turtle and Zod. However, Turtle kidnaps the cinema snob at the last second and escapes into space. What's going on? No, I'm in the middle of a review. You can't just...
Nostalgia Critic and his friends find the plot hole? Will they save the cinema snob who's been taken captive? Will they ever defeat the malevolent Turtle and the evil Executor? And what will happen to the Lobster Gamer? Find out next time on Lobsterpiece Theater.